Have you ever woken up feeling mentally exhausted, even after sleeping a full 8 hours? It's not your diet, and it's not general anxiety. It's the Zygarnik effect. Think about that background frustration you're feeling right now, that nagging, persistent feeling that something is missing or left unfinished. You thought it was just stress, but it's actually the pain of the hypothetical life, the life you could be living if you just make the damn decision. Your brain has dozens of decision files open, draining your energy like background apps on a dying phone. Have you ever looked at incredibly accomplished people and wondered what their secret is? Here's the harsh truth. They don't make better decisions than you. In fact, their choices are often even worse. But they do one specific thing after making a decision that you are failing miserably at. Watch this video to the end, and I'll give you their exact playbook to take back control of your mind.
Have you ever stopped everything you were doing to think about an important decision? Analyzed every angle, researched everything you could, and still couldn't decide? And do you know what conclusion you reached? That you needed more information, that you needed more time, that maybe it just wasn't the right moment yet. I'm going to show you over the next few minutes why that logic that seems completely reasonable, is actually the symptom of one of the most studied and least diagnosed psychological conditions of the last decade. And the most disturbing part? It's significantly more common in intelligent, successful, and ambitious people. At minute 12 of this video, I'm going to reveal something that researchers at Columbia and Cornell discovered about decision-making, something that will completely change the way you think about every important choice in your life. It's not what you expect, and when you hear it, your first reaction will be to disagree, but the data is irrefutable. But before we get there, and you need to stay until we do, I need to show you what's really happening when you decide not to decide just yet. Because what's happening in your brain at that moment isn't analysis. It's something entirely different, and it has a name. It's called FOBO. FOBO, fear of better options, the fear that there's always a better option than the one you're about to choose. And the first thing I need to tell you about FOBO is the one that bothers people the most when they hear it. It's not weakness. It's not a lack of self-awareness. It's not insecurity. It's a rational response from an intelligent brain to a world that gave you too much information. In 2000, a researcher named Sheena Iyengar ran an experiment that became famous across the entire world of psychology. She set up 2 tables with jam samples at a gourmet grocery store, one with 6 flavors, the other with 24 flavors. Do you know what happened? The table with 24 flavors attracted more people, many more people. People would stop, sample, enchanted by the variety. But when it came time to actually buy, the table with 6 flavors sold 10 times more. Think about what that means. People chose far more often when they had fewer options. But here's the part the study doesn't tell you, the part I'm going to show you in a moment. What happened to the people who stood in front of 24 flavors but walked away without buying anything? What did they feel afterward? Relief? Frustration? Or something much worse? But first, I need to show you why this isn't just about jam. This is about you. About the decisions you're putting off right now. Because FOBO doesn't just show up in grocery stores. It shows up when you can't decide which career to pursue, which city to live in, which partner to choose, which project to bet on. And there's research showing, with 20 years of follow-up data, that people who live in a chronic state of FOBO don't regret the decisions they made. They regret the decisions they never made. Have you ever felt that? Not the regret of having done something, the regret of never finding out whether you should have done it. That difference matters more than you can imagine, because there's a type of pain no therapy can cure, and it's precisely the pain of the hypothetical life, the life that could have been if you had just decided.
But before I show you how to get out of this, and I will show you, with a method most psychologists aren't teaching yet, I need you to understand something fundamental about what FOBO is doing to your brain right now. Do you remember the people who walked away from the jam table without buying anything? Iyengar did a follow-up. She interviewed those people, and what they reported was surprising.
They didn't feel relief. They didn't feel like they had made the wise choice of not buying on impulse. They felt a diffuse dissatisfaction, a something is left unfinished feeling. And that feeling lasted for hours. Do you know why? Because your brain, when it opens a decision-making process, creates a cognitive task. And open cognitive tasks consume mental resources until they're closed. This is called the Zeigarnik effect, discovered by a Soviet psychologist in the 1920s and confirmed by hundreds of experiments ever since. When you open a decision without closing it, you're not taking time to think it through better. You're creating a mental file that your brain's operating system keeps open, consuming memory, processing power, and energy until that file gets resolved. Think about the decisions you have open right now. Count them mentally. How many? Now you understand why you sometimes feel exhausted without having done anything. Why you fall asleep thinking about problems that aren't urgent, why you wake up feeling heavy even after a full night's rest. It's not general anxiety, it's your operating system trying to close files you refuse to close. But here's the part that's going to surprise you even more. FOBO is not a modern-day problem. It wasn't created by the internet, by social media, or by the infinite choice capitalism we live in. It has evolutionary roots, and when you understand where it comes from biologically, you'll understand why trying to discipline yourself out of it doesn't work. It turns out FOBO activates the same neural system that ensured your ancestors' survival for hundreds of thousands of years.
That system is called the seeking system, and it was studied by neuroscientist Jack Panksepp. It's one of the most primitive emotional systems in the brain. It lives in the midbrain, it predates language, it predates reasoning, and it has one single function: to keep the organism in a state of perpetual searching for resources, opportunities, and threats. For early humans, this system was the difference between surviving and dying. Never being fully satisfied meant continuing to explore, continuing to hunt, continuing to live. For you, in 2025, that same system is being used by evolution, by app design, and by the choice architecture of modern society to keep you in a state of chronic indecision. And there's an entire industry that profits from this. And in a moment, I'm going to show you exactly how and name the companies that do this deliberately. But first, there's something I need to tell you about your own personal history with FOBO. Let me ask you a question, and I want you to be honest with yourself. In the last 24 hours, have you put off a decision by telling yourself you needed more information? In the last 2 weeks, have you avoided committing to something that truly matters to you, a career, a person, a project, because it always seemed like it's just not the right time yet? In the last 5 years, is there something you should have decided and didn't that still takes up space in your head? If the answer to any of those questions is yes, what you're experiencing has a name, and it has an explanation, and, this is the most important part, it has a way out. But the way out is not what you expect. Remember at the beginning of this video, I promised I'd show you what researchers at Columbia and Cornell discovered? That it would be different from what you expect? We're here. But before I reveal it, and I need 60 seconds of context so this revelation can land with the impact it deserves, I need you to understand why conventional solutions to FOBO don't work. Most coaches, most self-help books, most videos about decision-making all tell you the same thing. Learn better frameworks, build a prioritization matrix, clarify your values, use Susie Welch's 10-10-10 rule. How will you feel about this in 10 minutes, 10 months, 10 years? Those tools are useful.
I'm not saying they're worthless, but 5-year follow-up studies show relapse rates of 80% in people who used only those tools to work through FOBO. Why? Because they treat the symptom, and FOBO is not a problem with how you decide. It's a problem with who you think you are when you decide. Every time you decide, you expose yourself. You show the world, and more frighteningly, yourself, what you truly value, what you truly want, who you truly are. And the FOBO brain is protecting you from that exposure with all the sophistication that 300,000 years of evolution could produce. It's not laziness, it's not lack of discipline, it's survival. And the only thing that actually works is not learning to decide better, it's learning to let go. Not as a resignation, not as defeat, not as I tried and I couldn't, as a deliberate, conscious, and, this will sound strange, pleasurable act of closing one possibility so that others can fully exist. Barry Schwartz, the psychologist who wrote The Paradox of Choice, spent decades studying why people with more options were less happy, and his conclusion in his most recent years of research wasn't reduce your options, it was learn to say a proper goodbye to the options you're not going to choose.
It sounds simple, but it's the hardest thing in the world for someone with FOBO, because letting go of an option isn't neutral. For the FOBO brain, letting go of an option is a small death. It's the death of a version of yourself that could have existed. It's the end of a possibility that, while it remained open, protected you from the responsibility of being completely who you decided to be. But here's what the research shows, and what I think you need to hear. The most fulfilled people studied in those Cornell longitudinal studies weren't the ones who made the best choices. They were the ones who committed most completely to the choices they made. They didn't find the right path. They turned the chosen path into the right path through commitment, through presence, through active construction. And do you know what that means? It means the best option doesn't exist before your decision. It's created after it. FOBO keeps you paralyzed because it believes the better option is out there somewhere waiting to be found. But it isn't. It's inside you, waiting to be built. So what do you do tomorrow? You identify the most important decision you've been putting off. Not all your decisions, just one. You gather the information you already have without seeking more, without researching more, without just one more opinion. And you decide. Imperfectly, with the information you have, with the imperfect courage you already possess. And then, and this is the part most people skip, you consciously say goodbye to the options you didn't choose. You honor them, you acknowledge that they were valid, and you let them go. Because the life you want isn't waiting for the right decision, it's waiting for a committed decision.
The difference between people who build extraordinary lives and people who spend their lives waiting for their extraordinary life isn't that the former found the right options. It's that they stopped waiting for the right options and started building. If this video touched something you recognize in yourself, a decision you've been putting off, a life you feel is waiting to begin, what I want you to do right now is simple. Write in the comments, what is the decision you've been avoiding? Not because I'm going to solve it for you, but because the act of naming an open loop, of putting it into words, is the first step toward closing it. And if you know someone who's also stuck in this paralysis, who's living a life waiting for the better option, share this video, because sometimes the right information reaches you through the right person at the right time, and that person might be you. In the next video, I'll show you the specific protocol researchers developed to resolve FOBO in under 30 days and why it works for people who have tried everything and failed. See you then.